Hey guys, welcome to Boxing Squared for boxing news and views from around the internet. Deontay Wilder has wasted no time in hitting back at Mark Breland after the former trainer went public talking about Wilder, saying he was done. Wilder doesn't listen, just wants to do his own thing. Breland went on to criticise his resume and also his training methods, said he didn't want to hit the heavy bag, do speed work, and also didn't jump rope. So Wilder, he went on to one of his fan channels, 78 Sports TV, and he basically delivered his thoughts. So in terms of Breland, they drew answers out of him on this YouTube channel over the course of about an hour or so, little bits of pieces here and there. But this was a direct response, a little bit ranty at times, and Wilder made his feelings clear. So he stated, "It's crazy. I had this man around me for so long. I fed this dude, even when many people felt I outgrew this dude. Many wanted me to fire him, but I kept him on board. I was the one who kept you around. You should have been gone a long time ago. But because of the love that I had to continue to give you a job, even after the act of his medical history, I still kept him around. To betray me, say crazy stuff, it is a little hurtful." And Wilder, he also referenced Breland having spoken about JD's, Wilder's head trainer, holding the water during the fight, bearing in mind that Wilder had accused Mark Breland of potentially spiking his water. He believes that Breland did something to his water, although Breland stated, "Look, show me where I had anything to do with the water, where I was holding it. You will find no footage. JD's had the water." And also the glove stuff. Wilder has sort of bought in that Tyson Fury's gloves must have been tampered with. He's spoken about a potential egg-sized weight being in Fury's gloves. But on that, Wilder said, "It's crazy how another man did something that we really don't have no proof, although we know that what the deal is. We know what's up, man, but it ain't really no proof, but you want to debunk something that we have all the proof and evidence." And I have to say, because I had to listen to that sort of section 5 or 6 times to sort of note down what he was saying, but it is very confusing. So he is saying they have all the proof to prove that, say, Mark Breland spiked the water, bearing in mind Deontay Wilder didn't fail the post-fight drugs test, so he believes something was in his water and that Mark Breland put it there. And he went on to say, "I told Jay, I believe Mark did something to my water. He don't want to give me no water." And later in the interview he says, "You did touch this." So again, Deontay Wilder doubling down on this whole issue of the spiked water, putting it down at the heels of his assistant or former assistant trainer Mark Breland there. It really is quite the claim. He says that he's got no proof, but he knows what went on, but then also says we have all the proof and evidence. I mean, what is it? Do you actually have any proof? Because if you do have proof that Mark Breland spiked your water, should probably be going to the authorities. But on the other side, if there is no proof forthcoming, although Deontay Wilder says that there is, you've got to wonder what sort of options Mark Breland is looking at in the legal sense, because there's a lot of potentially defamatory statements that Deontay Wilder is saying about his former trainer. In the course of Mark Breland's interview, which was done by Tunde Ajayi and also Spencer Fearon, Breland gave some opinions. Whether you believe them or not, they were his opinions. But it wasn't necessarily a personal attack, although it has been taken that way. And obviously Deontay Wilder is struggling to understand, to make sense of all of this. He says that Mark Breland is jealous of him. He said that in the interview with 78 Sports TV. And he went on to say a lot of his guys, they were saying ahead of the first fight, there was something wrong with Mark's energy. So this is the first fight, not the rematch where he was defeated and beaten up. His guys told Deontay Wilder they didn't think he wanted to be there, that his energy was off. And to me, when I hear some of this stuff, I mean, in the context of everything that's gone on, with the myriad of excuses after the loss and some of the stuff Deontay Wilder has said, a lot of it unsubstantiated, and his hardcore fans have made all sorts of excuses for him, which he seems to be feeding off and getting energized from. I mean, yeah, some of it really doesn't make a lot of sense. And especially, and this is the bit that sort of got me in the interview, Deontay Wilder can't understand why Mark Breland has said these things against him. Here's a couple of short clips.
What did I do? You know what I'm saying? What did I do? But now I'm a blessing. He know what type of person I am. Where is it all coming from? And all the stuff we did, is it because of where I am in life and your career was short? It could be a jealousy thing.
It really does beg a belief that Deontay Wilder doesn't understand why Mark Breland is now speaking up against him. And this is a case that right from the outset, Deontay Wilder was calling Mark Breland disloyal, and he blamed part of the defeat on Mark Breland for throwing in the towel, and then obviously later on went to fire him. Several months after the loss, he accuses him of spiking his water. He's blaming him for the loss. He's defaming the guy in public, and there's, basically character assassination. So, why wouldn't Mark Breland be responding and saying a few things? He did stay quiet for quite some considerable time when his name was being sort of brought into disrepute by Deontay Wilder having a sort of, an unchallenged narrative in public. Breland wasn't challenging what Wilder was saying. But the instant he does, Wilder comes back. And I guess with Deontay Wilder, we've seen in the past he's a very emotional guy. The reaction from him to these sorts of comments from Mark Breland is understandable to a point. He's been torched in public, doesn't like what he's heard, so he makes a point to immediately get out in public. And remember, Wilder's been off the radar, out of view for, most of recent months, but immediately pops up to fire back at Breland. But there is also an edge to it too. It's not just, the odd statement, which you can sort of take one way or the other and go, well, that's just an opinion. It's sort of that sort of situation that you might have with a sibling. That sibling who likes to one-up things in an argument when things aren't going well for themselves. They make it personal. They make it about everything else but the real issues. And that's what Wilder is doing in those comments, because as he even said, he's a little hurt. He is hurt by the comments from Breland, and he wants to hurt Breland back. And he wants to hurt him back worse. So there is, some childishness with what's going on here, and this sort of situation is clearly starting to devolve. But, it's understandable that Breland wasn't just going to stand by and just take hit after hit. So he's sort of fired back, and now we're in this sort of one-upping type situation where Deontay Wilder is making it personal, especially when he's basically saying that Breland was surplus to requirements for some time, but he kept him on, that people wanted him to be fired, that Breland really didn't have anything to offer, that people thought that Wilder had outgrown Breland. And certainly that opinion in of itself, given Breland was a champion himself, was a very talented and experienced amateur, had a good pro career, but Deontay Wilder's made it personal. Basically, Breland had nothing to offer him in the end, and he kept him there basically out of obligation and, as he says, love. So he's clearly struggling to understand some of these comments, and he says that he feels betrayed, that Breland is saying crazy stuff. I mean, I don't necessarily think all of it, what Breland was saying, or hardly any of it, was actually crazy, but it was an opinion. We don't have to agree with it. Some people will, some people won't. But I do think that there is certainly a personal edge, a personal piece of character assassination that Deontay Wilder undertook in this interview. But that's kind of, par for the course with Wilder. When you sort of go at him, he comes back at you harder, and he'll make it personal. And as he's done here again. But what did you make of this? Drop a comment, loud and often. Hit like, hit subscribe. Follow me on Twitter, boxing_squared. I'm out.